Now we've been joined by Alhaji Timothy Musa Kabba, the country's Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation. The minister is here to talk about his engagements at the United Nations General Assembly in New York, including his plans to improve Sierra Leone's bilateral relationship with other countries, among other many things we'll be discussing this morning. Good morning, Mr. Minister. It's a pleasure.
Good morning, studio, and good morning, the people of Sierra Leone.
Indeed. Welcome back, Mr. Minister. What goodies can we point to from our participation at UNGA, 80th UNGA?
UNGA at 80 for Sierra Leone, it's a confluence of milestones. A confluence of milestones because at the 80th anniversary of the UN, Sierra Leone, through the coordinatorship of His Excellency Dr. Julius Maada Bio, was able, at the 20th anniversary of the Salone Consensus and SAT Declaration, two important documents that formed the foundation for the common African position of the African Union on the reform of the UN Security Council that is demanding for an accentuated number of seats for Africa in the non-permanent category and a permanent voice representing Africa in the permanent category of the UN. At UNGA 80, His Excellency held the 7th Summit of the Heads of State and Government of the Committee of 10 Heads of State and Government to present to the intergovernmental negotiation team of the UN an African reform model for the UN Security Council, a milestone. Also, President Bio's chairmanship of the Authority of Heads of State and Government of ECOWAS has coincided with the 50th anniversary of ECOWAS. His Excellency also organized ECOWAS's celebration, 50th anniversary celebration at UNGA 80. So you see many milestones. And incidentally, at the 80th anniversary of the UN, Sierra Leone is in the non-permanent category of the UN Security Council, adding its independent principal voice to the maintenance of global peace and security. There were many other statutory meetings that were held by the President, my very humble self, other ministers that are related to the UN and its activities, and also several bilateral meetings were held by His Excellency the President, myself, and other ministers who were present at the General Assembly. And we were there. Sierra Leone's presence was proudly and impactfully felt at UNGA 80.
A lot of people were expecting UNGA, the Yenga issue to be discussed at the UN. Why not?
Well, when the President called in his debate for the respect of international law and the charters of the UN and the UN Charter, it implies that the President is asking for the respect of territoriality, statehood, sovereignty, and that in whole and in general, the debate of His Excellency the President emphasizing on the respect of member states, of the sovereignty and territorial integrity of other states was very much loud and clear. But apart from the general debate, of course, as I said, Sierra Leone is in the non-permanent category of the UN, and several private meetings held in the UN have got to do with what is affecting Sierra Leone. I had the privilege of being with the President in a bilateral meeting with the UN Secretary General. It was I felt really proud as a Sierra Leonean, and being Minister of Foreign Affairs under the guidance, leadership of His Excellency Dr. Julius Maada Bio. And let me quote, maybe let me paraphrase what the Secretary General said. He said to the President, Mr. President, I want to thank you and thank your country, Sierra Leone, for what you're doing in the UN Security Council and generally in the world. Your leadership at ECOWAS and Sierra Leone's strong voice in the African Union Peace and Security Council. He said, Mr. President, your country represents a country that is progressive, developmental, a respecter of human rights. He said, I have looked, there's no country anywhere in the world that espouses the values of the UN more than your country. That was commendable. And in that meeting, the President raised not only Sierra Leonean issues to the Secretary General, but also regional issues such as the Sahel and, you know, the movement of terrorism from the Sahel to the coast, to the south and west part of the West African sub-region, and also spoke about Sudan, the Congo, and the reform of the UN Security Council to give Africa that permanent, memorable, and historic opportunity to be in that permanent chamber where African issues will be made, you know, will be made really, really sound, will be made convincing to help Africa, because over 55% of the issues that are discussed in the UN Security Council have got bearing on our continent. So His Excellency is pushing on that, and the commendation from the Secretary General is what I think I am very proud of as Minister of Foreign Affairs, being the prime messenger of His Excellency on our foreign policy.
But, you know, the President discussed all of those things out of Sierra Leone, but not Yenga, which is internally. Why?
But that's what I'm saying. The President, in bilateral meeting, the bilateral meeting with the Secretary General, raised the issue of Yenga.
Okay.
And in our national debate, the President spoke about respect for international law and the UN Charter. International law guarantees member states of the UN their sovereignty and territorial integrity. In our bilateral meetings with other leaders, this was a discussion. So Yenga is a top priority, it's a diplomatic priority.
Okay. And
of course, I'm from the East, and Yenga, incidentally, is in the East, and it is our folks that have been affected badly by this encampment, infringement of our territorial integrity and sovereignty.
You know, it's been 4 months since the US issued this partial ban, you know, on visas generally in Sierra Leone. Now, the ambassador has gone, actually. But what's the update generally? People are waiting to hear, you know, positively. It's
Yes,
been 4 months now. Also,
yes.
been a review in 3 months. But
Look, it's unfortunate that certain categories of the U.S. Visa have been suspended, notably the B1, B2, which is general visitors visa, and the student visa. Visas are still being issued. Journalists can still, you know, obtain their visas. You know, normally journalists will go to cover programs and come back. What the State Department stated when the suspension was slammed in Sierra Leone is that statistics with the State Department show that Sierra Leonean citizens on these categories highlighted go to the United States and overstay, and that they had exceeded the allowable, you know, number of people that can misuse the consular privileges that are given to countries that have bilateral relations with the U.S. And so here the problem is with our citizens who go to the United States and overstay, students and ordinary visas that are issued to folks for visits and also for business and pleasure. And when the suspension was slammed, I called the ambassador, the U.S. ambassador, and asked if he had any idea for beyond the stated reason on the website of the State Department. He said, well, look, Mr. Minister, this has nothing to do with the health and state of the bilateral relations between Sierra Leone and the United States. Evidence to that is when the Donald Trump administration came with you know, the closure of many programs that the U.S. government deems not effectively in the interest of the United States. The MCC became one of those affected programs. Unlike Sierra Leone, many other MCC programs in Africa were terminated. To show the health of our bilateral relations with the United States, Sierra Leone's program was reinstated, because MCC is a product of bilateral relations. And so we see the MCC is going on. Quite recently, we're in the United States. The World Bank is sitting in the US. We saw the M300. And so specifically for the visa, there was a checklist that was given to us by the US Embassy. Okay. We have satisfied over 90% of what is on the checklist as a way of remedying the situation. When we're in the United States, I engaged the Under-Secretary General for Political Affairs. We were discussing multilateral issues where Sierra Leone and the U.S. worked in the Security Council on certain resolution, but also that, in a way, I broached the conversation to the Undersecretary General for Political Affairs that Sierra Leone has taken certain measures to ensure that we are removed from that category of suspension. And we had those discussions. When we were in Washington as well, His Excellency the President, I accompanied him. We went to the State Department. We met with the Deputy Secretary of State of the United States, and this conversation was brought up. With what we've done in terms of remedy, the United States Embassy here in Freetown continues to transmit our improvement to the State Department with respect to Sierra Leonean deportees, Sierra Leonean nationals that are on deportation list. We have been complying. One of the requirements that the U.S. made to Sierra Leone was, look, to fast track and efficiently get our non-documented citizens to be repatriated to Freetown is to remove or perhaps waive off the cost for emergency traveling certificate, which we've graciously done in good faith to ensure that the process is seamless, quick for our citizens to come to Freetown.
How many people are on that deportation list, and when are they expected to get to Sierra Leone?
Since Sierra Leoneans have been traveling out of this country, there have been always occasions where Sierra Leoneans have been brought back because of undocumentation out there, because of not being documented out there, I should say. And Guinea, just about a few months ago, sent some of our citizens to Sierra Leone on the pretext that overstayed, even though we do have ECOWAS's protocol on migration, but it's 90 days, and if you're not properly documented, it is at the gift of the host country to say, we want you to go to your country and get your documentation properly. So the United States is not the only country where undocumented Sierra Leoneans are sent back. In the I'm coming. In the UK, in Europe, in other places in Africa, in Asia. With the United States, the new administration, Trump administration, their policy is to get rid of undocumented, aliens in their country. And considering these people are national security threats to the United States, and what we've been doing, like it had always been in the past, when Sierra Leoneans are identified and sent to Sierra Leone, we've been cooperating. The statistics of how many Sierra Leoneans have come home or are on a deportation list, I don't have that, simply because every day we get requests, every other time we get requests from the United States, and there is this multi-stakeholder committee.
What's the deportation process like?
Well, when the United States government identifies an undocumented Sierra Leonean citizen, they will come to the embassy, make the request for verification. We do have an ad hoc committee that comprises representative from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, from NCR, and some other stakeholders. This committee will now look into the matter to identify, in the first place, if the identified person is a Sierra Leonean. Once that identification is done, then our embassy in Washington will issue the emergency traveling certificate for that Sierra Leonean individual identified, and we will cooperate with the United States State Department to have those Sierra Leoneans sent back to our country.
So obviously the government, through the ministry, is always aware of the deportation process. So it brings me back to what I asked earlier that you've not been able to give clarity on. How many Sierra Leoneans are currently on the list of deportation from the US, and at what point are they expected to be home?
It is like I ask you, in this week, how many people have you had in your studio? It's a process. People come and go. You get people you invite.
I can tell you, this week it's been you and the mayor. This is the first edition for the week.
Excuse me. It is not casual as you're saying it. I am dealing with a diplomatic responsibility that has far-reaching implications.
But you've just told me, because I asked you again the process. When they want to do the deportation, they send to your office for verification.
Madam Mabel.
So by now you're supposed to have an idea of an estimate at least of people that are on the list to be deported from the US?
Fabian, it is not, these deportations are not an event. They are a process. Since we started having bilateral relations with the United States, identified citizens have been repatriated.
Is it true that there are over 1,000?
You are interrupting.
Is it true that there are over 1,000? Because while you can't give clarity, already on social media, there are rumors about over 1,000 Sierra Leoneans to come.
You are the interviewer, I'm the interviewee. Can you allow me to give my response to your
yes,
inquiry?
Please give clarity.
So let's have that. I'm the interviewee, you are the interviewer. Allow me to answer your question. Now,
which you've not answered, but yes, please answer the question.
You are interrupted. Can we be a little bit pacific here so that the population will understand what is obtaining? Now, you're talking about 1,000. What period are you referring to?
So I spent time asking you how many people are on the list and at what time are they expected to be here. You may or may not have seen on social media that there's about 1,000 Sierra Leoneans expected to be back in Sierra Leone by December 2025, being deported from the US.
That is not true.
So give us the truth.
That is not
the
true.
Figures and the timeline.
I cannot give you the exact figure of Sierra Leoneans because, look, my work is quite ambulatory. The embassy works with immigration. Immigration receives the Sierra Leoneans that come to Sierra Leone, and therefore I will check with immigration and give you the number of Sierra Leoneans that have come for the period of January to September to October 2025. I will make that available to you. I don't have that data off the cuff. We're talking about our citizens here. Now to say 1,000 Sierra Leoneans are going to be sent by December, that is not only preposterous, it is untrue. We have not had, and because you know what happens? When they see the Sierra Leoneans, they write to the embassy, we have gotten this number of Sierra Leoneans, verify. And there has not been any time when we've had a verification of 50 people at a time. Like I said, this is a process, it's not an event. Sierra Leoneans have been deported from other countries to Sierra Leone. For this period under review, I have not seen a single time when Sierra Leoneans have been packed. 50 requests have been made for Sierra Leoneans to be deported. So I find it very difficult. We are less than 3 months to the end of the year that 50 Sierra Leoneans are going to be sent to our country. That is an untrue story. It's a spoof story on social media, and it's an alarmist attempt to create alarm, to create fear and trepidation. It is not true. It is erroneous. And I will not come here and cook up a figure and give that figure to you. What I know, we've been cooperating with the United States. We have only allowed people that we've proven beyond all reasonable doubt that are of Sierra Leonean origin and are Sierra Leonean. These are the people we've allowed to come to our country. We haven't allowed anybody that is not proven to be a Sierra Leonean to come to our country. That is where we are with the immigration rate. And look, I tell you what, the number of people that are deported from the United States to other countries is alarming. It's not the case in Sierra Leone. And in fact, when we were in the US, thanks to the Minister of Information, we had a civic conversation in Maryland with our Sierra Leoneans, telling and pleading with our folks, those who have misused this consular opportunity for the good of the masses of our country, for the good of the reputation and image of our country, let them come home. Let them come home and save us of the high statistics of overstay. His Excellency the President in Washington met with leaders of Sierra Leonean communities in the United States, clergymen, Christian clergymen, Islamic religious leaders, representative of different social groups like the Creole Descendant, Tigloma, and other organizations. His Excellency had a meeting with them, gave them stock inventory of what is happening in the country, pleaded with them to be respecters of the laws of the United States and for them to abide by consular by the laws that govern consular privileges. So this is all in a bid to remedy the suspension.
Sierra Leone's government had come under scrutiny at one time for the same deportation issue. We had 2 people in Sierra Leone who were deportees. Those 2 people, in fact, those 2 gentlemen had been insisting that they are non-Sierra Leoneans. They had an issue that Sierra Leone as a country could agree that they should be deported to Sierra Leone. How does it happen that such an instance would happen when people would say, I am not a Sierra Leonean, but somehow they end up being deported to Sierra Leone?
I became Minister of Foreign Affairs
After that?
I'm coming. I became Minister of Foreign Affairs in 2023. Since I sat on that seat to now, we have not accepted anybody to Sierra Leone that is not a Sierra Leonean. The records are clear. And let me tell you, no matter the pressure, we know the security of our state is paramount to us. The health of our people is important to us. If you introduce an alien, a deportee that is not a Sierra Leonean, it has a tendency of adulterating Sierra Leone's social culture. It has a tendency of causing insecurity. His Excellency the President is against that. We are against that. And that is why the multi-stakeholder group that verifies these identified Sierra Leoneans is non-compromising. We ensure that Sierra Leoneans are only Sierra Leoneans are sent back to Sierra Leone. And that is where we are. The incident you're talking about, when I was in a different capacity, I heard about it. And of course, I heard about the challenges that those deportees actually pose to our society, our country, and I don't have any further information on them. But what I can account for verifiably is the fact that in my little under 3 years as Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation, we have not had any such case of anybody being brought to our country that is not a proven Sierra Leonean.
As part of the doubts that the U.S. Embassy had with some of the activities that go on with the government delegation to some of these trips like CSW, UNGA and so on, what was going to happen then was also go beyond now to get interviews done with some people. During this UNGA, the process for the traveling, was that implemented, calling people who previously were not even invited to the U.S. Embassy for an interview on such trips? Did they implement now calling some of them for an interview?
Now let's get it clear. The U.S. government does not dictate for the government of Sierra Leone who goes for any event in the United States. The U.S. government, through its embassy, does not dictate. The U.S. has its own foreign policy. Now, the new administration of President Donald Trump frowns at, for example, they want to strengthen their national borders. Yeah, programs like CSW are donor-driven. Okay, because they are donor-driven in a way, not a UN statutory meeting like you have the General Assembly. It is expected by the new administration that people have to show proof that what they're going for, that it's relevant to what they're doing, and that they have the necessary donor relationship, right? For General Assembly, it is at the gift of the country to say, I want A, B, C, D to be in my delegation. What the U.S. Embassy is doing in Sierra Leone is not only specific to Sierra Leone in terms of heightened verification of applicant. All over the world, the United States, cognizance of the challenges they have with illegal immigration, they have heightened up their verification process with respect to those who apply for their visas. So it's not only a Sierra Leonean specific issue. And for UNGA, the President, His Excellency Julius Maada Bio, makes it very clear, every UNGA, that he or she who does not have anything to do in UNGA as relevant as it should be, must not be at UNGA. I was just at 98.1, someone said over 100 people went for UNGA and made mention of the chairman of the SLPP and the Secretary General. The chairman of the SLPP and the Secretary General were in the United States, coincidentally inaugurating SLPP's leaders in North America. The president is the leader of the SLPP. When he's in New York, an event held in New Jersey, they had to come to celebrate with the president after a fantastic, memorable and impactful debate in the General Assembly. And that besides, there are UN agencies in Sierra Leone that have portfolio in certain ministries. They take care of those ministries take them to UNGA to meet with the leadership of those organizations, UNDP, UNFPA. So the thing about UNGA and the delegation, the president's delegation is quite lean. From my ministry, Ministry of Foreign Affairs, only 3 people travel for UNGA. Myself, the Director of Policy and Multilateral, and the Director General. So if you see a lot of people going to UNGA, some people are, it's September, August, but some people are on vacation. But if they know the president is in New York, they will go to support the president on the day of the general debate. And that's why you see these numbers.
Speak to the relationship between Sierra Leone and Netherlands. What's our current relationship, these two nations? I ask this on the history that over the recent times, we've had this drugs-related issue with suspected or wanted people in the Netherlands who have connections, alleged connections and ties to Sierra Leone. Over the weekend as well, we saw new sets of names also connected to your Slyjackers. What's Sierra Leone's relationship with the Netherlands as we speak?
We do have a thriving bilateral relationship with the Netherlands. Even at UNGA, the Netherlands requested for bilateral relations. I was very overly charged with pre-arranged bilateral meetings before their request came in. And the Minister of Justice, for example, had engagement with the Dutch delegation. There's an accredited Dutch ambassador to Sierra Leone resident in Accra. We get, and there's also a honorary consul of the Netherlands in Sierra Leone. And there's a healthy bilateral relations. We have Sierra Leoneans living in the Netherlands. We have programs in the Netherlands. We are part of the ICC and the ICJ, and we have a fine bilateral relation. And of course, this incident of the Dutch requesting for
extradition of your Slyjackers,
of an alleged wanted person in Sierra Leone, is the request was made to the Ministry of Justice and the Attorney General. And of course, there are laws that govern extradition. If there is anyone in another country that is requested or wanted in another country, there are laws, extradition laws. And I guess the request that was made to the Attorney General is in view of those laws and how possibly they can go about it. If there is indeed the person they are looking for is in Sierra Leone, then definitely they will go by what is obtaining in the laws of extradition between Sierra Leone and the Netherlands, if there is any.
There's a lot of accusation from even Sierra Leoneans at home and abroad against the government's sort of response to the extradition request and how the government itself has treated the whole Yos Slyjackers, aka Omar Sharif situation in the country. If some Sierra Leoneans home and abroad feel this way about the government, you would wonder, how does the Netherlands feel about Sierra Leone's response?
Look, Mabel, I don't know anybody, Fabian, I beg your pardon.
It's okay.
I don't know anyone called Josh, nor do I know anyone called Omar. And in diplomacy, people can send diplomatic notes requesting. You respond to the diplomatic notes in good faith because you do have an existing trustworthy relationship. And when the Netherlands sent the request, it was honored through my ministry as Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and it was submitted to the Attorney General's office. The Attorney General is reviewing the extradition request, but I don't know of a person called Josh or Umar that is living anywhere in this country that the government of Sierra Leone is refusing to extradite. That, I will tell you, as Minister of Foreign Affairs, I have no knowledge of any such person living anywhere in this country that the government of Sierra Leone has deliberately refused, I say deliberately, in contravention of international law to extradite any such person. So I understand, I mean, we live in a world of rambunctious journalism, a world of spirited journalism, and everybody has an opinion. And because of the sort of environment we live, those opinions are always freely expressed. This morning I was just joking with someone. I said, you know, there has not been any time in the history of our country that press freedom has been enhanced more than today. Think about the number of TV stations we have in this country today. Think about the emergence of news outlet in this country.
Still on diplomacy, how did it end that the last set of criminals that were arrested over the weekend, Sierra Leone again has now been linked to those people who are also linked to your slide jackers, one of them allegedly holding a Sierra Leonean diplomatic passport. How did that happen?
I mean, you said allegedly, and as diplomats, we don't base our acceptance and decisions on hearsay. Sierra Leoneans were not. I've seen myself this social media thing. I cannot verify whether or not the arrests were made. I've seen pictures, and I've seen some journalists in Sierra Leone sharing some international news outlet in different languages. I've myself attempted in Google translating some of these languages in Dutch. I have seen the news, yeah? But here, the people who were arrested in Dubai, an extradition request was made by the Turkish government to the Emirati government, and these people were, from the pictures and the news, I cannot verify, they said they were arrested in the UAE and transferred to Turkey. They were not arrested as Sierra Leoneans. Otherwise, we would have had a formal request from the Turks to the government of Sierra Leone. Neither the Turks nor the Emiratis have written to us formally to inform us that they were in possession of Sierra Leoneans that were wanted by the Turkish government. So because I'm a diplomat and because we're dealing with a sensitive issue that has to do with the United Nations Convention on Transnational Organized Crime, I would not take that for a verifiable news, and I think I am restrained to accept that those people are Sierra Leoneans, that they even were held, were arrested as Sierra Leoneans. For the diplomatic passport, it is my responsibility to sanitize our country's image. If anything impinges on the image of Sierra Leone, it hurts me, because I have the responsibility to do that midwifery, to bring about that sanity again in terms of our relationship with these countries that are involved. And so if there is a proof that these people were arrested using Sierra Leonean diplomatic passport, those passports will have the date of issuance, those passports will have serial number. We will check through the system to see where it went wrong. But let me also state this for the benefit of the public. The Constitution gives the President the right to issue diplomatic passport.
Yeah, so I was going to ask you, what's the process of obtaining a diplomatic passport, and who is qualified to obtain a Sierra Leonean diplomatic passport?
Yes, I'm coming. For example, honorary consul. The honor is bestowed on an individual proven of probity, yeah, by the President. For example, when we appoint someone to represent us in a country where we do not have a physical embassy, if that person is proven to be worthy of our representation to promoting and protecting the image of Sierra Leone, it is at the gift of His Excellency to give that person a diplomatic passport, because it is allowed by the Vienna Convention that establishes diplomatic relations, right? And it is also at the gift of the President to give our diplomatic passport to eminent persons who represent the truest image of our country. People, for example, we have seen entertainment ambassadors giving Sierra Leonean diplomatic passport, because these people contribute to the general promotion of our country's image. Now, we live in a world that is so complex. The human being is very complex. If somebody, it's possible, I cannot tell you that there's a fail-safe for these processes, that someone cannot obtain a passport. We've seen people forging passport everywhere. I was in ECOWAS, we were discussing on dual citizenship for ECOWAS members, staff of the ECOWAS Commission, especially those who were previously employed as citizens of the countries that have exited ECOWAS, the AES countries. And the argument was, If someone has a dual citizenship, what do? Every minister in that conversation said, no, because in our countries, even though we keep the integrity of our passport, criminals have a way to obtain our passport. It's everywhere. But you know what? It is indefensible if the wrong people have our passport. It is indefensible. That is why I am seeking, to have a copy of the alleged diplomatic passport. So we do thorough forensic audit on those passports and the system. Until then, it's hearsay. Until then, it's rumors. Until then, it is not. We have not been told diplomatically, and until we have a diplomatic notice to the effect, we will not act or react to that.
Alhaji, just to round off, what new, consulars, or if you like, embassies or scholarships have we secured for Sierra Leone?
Well, there's a lot. There's a lot we get from our bilateral relations. We have increased scholarship coming from the different countries that we have relationship with. For example, we get the Hungarian scholarship, and we get from China. We get from the Russian Federation. We get from Cuba. We get from Algeria. We get from Morocco and Greece, and there are a lot of benefits we get from, in terms of scholarship from these countries. The Commonwealth, the Shevlin Scholarship, and all of these have been administered by the Ministry of Higher and Technical Education. And Sierra Leone's reach diplomatically has been heralded as Sierra Leone's emergence in the global system. Not least that we have opened an embassy in Paris, one of the P5 members of the UN Security Council, an important European and global leader. And so we do have an embassy established there. We have in the Mediterranean Sea, we have Algeria, we have an embassy opened in I beg your pardon. So these are some of the embassies that we've established, and they're all doing very well. And we have, in return, many of our partners now opening their embassies in Sierra Leone. Iceland has less than 5 embassies in Africa. Sierra Leone happens to be one of those embassies. We now have South Korea working on opening its embassy here. The Russians are also trying to open their embassy in Freetown. We have the Moroccans have an embassy here. The Saudi Arabians have their embassy in Sierra Leone open. This is all testament to the trust in the partnership we have with our bilateral partners. So our diplomatic environment is widening, both at home and overseas, and our participation in multilateral organizations is quite respected, and a lot of accolades on Sierra Leone. Thankfully, we have now secured, and I pray it remains a permanent peace between Israel and Palestine, the Gaza situation. Sierra Leone has consistently called for a 2-state solution, ceasefire, access to humanitarian aid, and this is what we're seeing unfolding. It brings respite to the people of Gaza. It brings relief to our conscience as humans. We see over 64,000 people have been killed in Gaza. And also the October 7 attack on Israel left families devastated, people killed, hostages held. This development that is now happening with in the Palestinian situation, it's quite welcoming, and Sierra Leone has played an important role in that. In the UN Security Council, we have raised our voice for the 2-state solution, calling for ceasefire and humanitarian aid.
As we close off, Mr. Minister, the year is dawning. Should we be hopeful that this visa restriction with the US will be lifted?
We are working towards that. It is at the gift of the government of the United States to either speedily but cautiously look at the merits, and we're working very hard. And before we go, I am really pleading with our citizens that are overseas who fall under this category of overstaying to kindly, in the interest of the image of our country and the many thousands of Sierra Leoneans who really have something important to do in the United States, for them to benefit from these consular privileges, let them comply. Thank you for this interview.
Thank you very much for your time this morning to be with us on the program. This is where we end today's edition of Wake Up Sierra Leone. We'd like to say thanks to our guests.